Hello there, so I'm on my way up north to host retreat, and I've just stopped off at Stafford Services on the M6 north of Birmingham. It's one of my absolute favourite services, and here's the reason: because I can walk straight out of the picnic ground up into what effectively is pretty wild nature. And just doing this makes me feel so good, as you can, I'm sure, imagine. And this film is to do with people who spend a lot of time sitting down in front of a screen and sitting down in a car. And I guess these have become the most likely activities of a 21st century human being. Chances are we end up doing both. Now, one of the price we can pay for this, we can have issues with the health. So I've been messaging a friend recently, and he explained how he's developed hemorrhoids, and he eats incredibly well, and he drinks plenty of water, and it's like, what is going on? How could this guy possibly be having issues with his health, which are requiring regular medical intervention? And so this is my cue to share with you. So what I've done for a long time, because I had a situation where I needed to travel at least 6 hours in the car, a really long journey from northwest England to southeast England on a regular basis, and I noticed it was taking its toll on me, and gradually as time went on I evolved various techniques. So one of my first techniques, which might be a bit controversial, but I don't eat out. I bring my own food with me. It might be soup in one of those special soup flasks, it might be a hot meal, or more likely it might just be a load of salad and a bit of bread, or it might be a load of fruit to make a fruit salad with. And this does help so much, because of course the problem is, as soon as we start eating in cafes, we are then subjected to what is the norm. And unfortunately, most food that comes from a cafe is actually microwaved. The vast majority of it's microwaved, and unless it specifically says homemade, it's even worse than that. It's straight from the freezer into the microwave. And the other thing is, I actually have a friend called David the Shaman Chef, and he's the one that pointed out it's totally accepted practice in cafes and even decent restaurants to serve food that is up to, wait for it, 4 days old. Yeah, it can be totally fine to serve someone a meal, charge them a decent amount of money for it, posh meal, and the food's 4 days old, cooked 4 days previously. And that's good practice. Bad practice, it could be longer. Well, that's a bit disturbing, isn't it? That's what I thought anyway. So that really does reaffirm my view about avoiding making eating out a regular practice. It's okay now and again, but not all the time, and not as part of your everyday lifestyle in terms of work and travel and such like. So that's the first big one. And then the second one is to do with sitting down, and I do give thanks and gratitude to my nephew who shared this little gem with me. In the New Scientist, it says that they were doing some research to discover, for people sitting down for a long time, whether going into the gym a few times a week, having a really good blast in the gym, would undo all the damage that's being done by them sitting down for up to 8 hours in front of a screen. And the scientists were rather disappointed, because actually, no, it doesn't help at all. And they were really shocked about that. And I don't know what made them think of it, but eventually they came up with a protocol which is every 20 minutes, and I've watched my nephew doing this. Every 20 minutes a beep goes off next to him, and he switches the sound off. He gets up, stands up, moves away from his screen, moves probably no more than about 1.5 meters in a circle, and goes and sits down again. Scientists have discovered that that is actually the best thing you can do to make up for the harm that's being caused by sitting down for too long. Well, that's a shocker, isn't it? So what I do when I'm travelling as I am at the moment on the motorways, I get out of the car and I walk a bit and then I start running, and that makes me feel so much better. But I've noticed in more recent times, somehow this isn't enough anymore. At one point in the journey, and I've just done it now, I'll stop and I'll find a bit of nature. So here's the thing, I've got my favourite motorway services in the UK, and Stafford North and South is excellent. Hilton Park North is appalling. Hilton Park South is excellent. They're both north of Birmingham. But really my point is, make a study of your own motorway services. And here's a crucial thing, is there a place you can just actually get out onto the grass, and is there a place you can go, maybe a little path leading up to some woods like I've got here? It's so lovely, I love coming here. So I've done some Qigong, about 20 minutes, my standard morning Qigong, and I feel so much better. And for the last hour in the car I was aware of the fact that, because I've been particularly tuning in, because having had this subject brought up to my mind, I was in almost constant pain in my right leg, pushing down the accelerator. Stands to reason when you think about it, because it's a completely unnatural thing to do. So if you do find yourself in a situation, and this is a beautiful little apple tree in blossom here, where you have to sit down for long periods of time. Now when I'm driving I can't get up every 20 minutes. I think that's why I need a good blast of Qigong halfway or 2/3 of the way through the journey. It helps so much. But basically, look at how much time you're sitting down, take regular breaks, even if it's just to get up and move just 1.5 meters in a circle and sit down again. Do you far more good than going to the gym 2 or 3 times a week. It just doesn't touch it, because what the body needs is not to be in these fixed positions. It's completely counterintuitive for the body, and it's just, well, there's no other word for it, it's wrong. People living in a traditional lifestyle, they were always on the move. They didn't sit down for hours at a time. It's a really unhealthy thing to do, and I recognise that this is a time in my life when I spend most time sitting down. I'm doing a long journey, 5-6 hours, something like that, so it does help enormously to get up and move around. And I've got a friend, and when he comes to visit me, he only does a 1-hour journey. He doesn't stay terribly long, but when he arrives he never sits down. The entire time he's there for the visit, which is usually up to about an hour and a half, we just have a chat, he never sits down. And then he gets back in his car and he goes back home, and that's something that he's developed for himself and works really well for him. So ideally speaking, get up as often as you can and give your body the movement that it's craving. And when it comes to food, if you can prepare your own and take your own with you, you've got the control about what goes into the food. You know how it's been treated, and you can make damn sure it hasn't been microwaved or been lying in somebody's fridge for 4 days, having been microwaved previously and in a cafe or even a restaurant, before it gets re-microwaved and served to you, and you get charged an enormously expensive price for it. So there we are. There's a few random ruminations, and it's time for me to go get back in the car, and I'm just feeling some